Welcome to Knit One, Write Two, where we talk about books and yarn. Hi, I'm Vanessa.
Hi, I'm Lynn.
And before we get started, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button so that you know when our next video is available.
And today we're going to be talking about hangovers, specifically yarn and book hangovers. So that's when, after you've finished a project or you've finished a book, you feel like, oh my God, that was so good. I just need to sit and dwell on it for a little while before moving
You've been
on to the next thing.
destroyed for other books or other projects.
Destroyed by it. So, Vanessa, has there been a project or book recently that you've had a hangover from?
Yes. Jen Hale's actually the last book in her Catalonian, I think that's it, series came out in early March. And I'm a big Jen Hale fan. She writes queer fantasy. And this was the 6th book in 3 sets of duologies. And it's called The Master of Restless Shadows, Book 2. The first one is the first duology is The Lord of the White Hell. The second one is The Champion of the Scarlet Wolf. And the third one is The Master of Restless Shadows. And the last one came out in March, and I'd been waiting for it for so long, it feels like, because, this series has been going on for, I think, almost 10 years now. And I loved it so much. I read it pretty much in 2 days flat, and stayed up way too late. I think that's another part of a book hangover is you stay up way too late reading, and you feel like crap the next day because because you've been treating yourself poorly in service of the book. But it was just so good, and I was kind of ruined for other books for a little bit after that. But how about you? Have you had a book hangover recently?
So I was trying to think about that, and I don't think I have one that I can think of recently. But the most recent one I can remember is it's an Elizabeth Kingston book, which I can't remember the name of right at the moment. Hold on a second.
She writes historical, right?
She writes historical.
Yes, I know I've read something of hers, but I can't remember the title either. And I'm really bad with titles for historical books.
I am awful. I can't remember any names. I'm awful with names. Okay, A Fallen Lady by Elizabeth Kingston is so good. It's a historical Regency romance, and it just killed me with how good it was. And specifically because the heroine has escaped London society, lives in this little village, and she has kind of a tragic backstory. She's dealing with PTSD basically, because of trauma that's happened in her past. And I think that was the first time I've seen a historical romance deal with that kind of mental illness in such a stark way which because it's typically something that we see in more contemporary romance or more sort of like modern
Right.
day stuff, because we're, these days we're more attuned to those things. But obviously, like PTSD existed forever. They
Sure.
just didn't call it that or didn't recognize it as that. And
Right.
Elizabeth Kingston has really sort of like baked in those modern day sensibilities into what this heroine's going through during the Regency period. So I really, really loved it. And it was like so good. I was like bawling my eyes out,
Oh,
read it late into the night. It was like 3 a.m. and I'm just like, I can't go to sleep now.
better just get up and put the coffee on.
Right. And then, yeah, just like destroyed the next day, most like emotionally and physically. And just, it's like,
Yeah.
it's wonderful when books do that. And also, I really can't handle that kind of book, like one after another. They have to be few and far between.
Yeah. Like you need some fluff in between. Like you need something really lighthearted after you read something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Have you ever had a book hangover from a more like lighthearted book?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. I'll be honest, I don't read a whole lot of lighthearted books. Um,
Same.
which I don't know why, because I like them. I know I do. I know I read some lighthearted books. But here's the thing, some of my favorite lighthearted books
Mm-hmm.
actually like have some really serious themes in them too. Like I'm
Hmm.
thinking about like Cat Sebastian. I love Cat
Mm-hmm.
Sebastian's writing. I think she's absolutely phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And I will read anything she writes, even if it's not like my typical fare.
Mm-hmm.
So her book, well, there's two Cabot books. There's Tommy Cabot Was Here and Peter Cabot Gets Lost. And
Mm-hmm.
Peter Cabot Gets Lost is actually kind of fluffy. It's a road
Mm-hmm.
trip story. It's very sweet, seems fairly low angst, but then like the stuff going on with Peter's family is really, really like, um, it's really intense. And his dad is like the Democratic candidate for president. And he's
Okay.
basically running away from like all the pressure that his family puts on him and stuff. And
Yikes.
his family's horrible. Like they're all horrible except for his Uncle Tommy, who
Uh-huh.
was the main character in the other one. But except for his Uncle Tommy, they're all just awful people. And
Mm-hmm.
there's this one part where Caleb says to him, I can't believe I have to vote for your father. And it's just this like, it's this moment where you're like, oh my God, I so relate to that because, how many times has that been a situation in my own life where I've had to vote for somebody who, I thought was terrible because the other person was even more terrible. And,
Oh my gosh, yeah. The lesser of two
but I'm not
evils.
related to any of them. you
Right. That makes it
know?
even
So,
worse.
yeah. So it was really intense. And even though it was a light, fluffy book, that all that stuff with his family was really difficult to read at times because it was, it's just families are hard. And
Mm.
that thing that was going on, like with his family all being so terrible, like it really affected me. So yeah, I guess
Mm.
I do get that kind of book hangover thing from, and that, by the way, Peter Cabot Gets Lost is one of my favorite books that I've read in the last couple of years. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was, when it came out, it was such a soft book in a lot of ways, and it just
Mm-hmm.
really felt comforting to read, because these two guys on a road trip together, and like that by the time they reach the other side of the country they're going to be in love, and it was a really comforting thing to read. But yeah, there were parts that were heavier too. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can have a book hangover without that
Mm-hmm.
little bit, at least a little bit of
Yeah.
the angst happening.
Because
How about you?
I'm trying to think of a lighter book that I've had that kind of reaction to, and um, I can't think of one. But it might also be because, like you, I don't read as many light and fluffy books. I tend to
Yeah.
gravitate toward the more heavier, angsty ones. Um, yeah, I can't think of any. Because when you said Cat Sebastian, I thought of KJ Charles and A Seditious Affair because it's
I love
historical,
that
but
book
it's
so
not
much.
light at all. So
No, it's so tense.
it's very, very tense. And I love that book. It's one of the few books that I've read more than once.
I love that one too. In fact, that is one of my, I know this sounds crazy because we've just talked about how tense it is, but that's one of my go-to comfort reads. Like when I have
Really?
a book hangover and I'm ready to
Uh-huh.
read something else, like, and I need to read something else, that is one of the ones I reach for every time.
Oh,
Because, yes, it's really tense, but now I've read it probably 5 or 6 times. So
right. Yeah.
like I know how everything is going to go. And there's certain things. In fact, I almost wore my Wednesday by Wednesday t-shirt this week. Um, but instead I'm wearing A Feminist Reads Whatever the Fuck They Want
Nice.
from the Ripped Bodice. But yeah, that book, there's certain things in it that just suck me back in. So it's my
Mm-hmm.
post-book hangover comfort read.
Yeah. I can see
So
how
do
that
you
is
do that
like,
too? After you've had a book hangover, do you seek out like a comfort reread or something like that? Or how do you deal with a book
um,
hangover?
how do I deal with the book hangover? That's a really good question. I I don't often reread books, so I don't go
Right,
back to something I've read before. But I think I try to seek out similar types of books.
right.
So if it was a historical, then I'll try to seek out another historical or like similar genre type book.
Mhm.
Um,
I think I do the same. I
and I
think.
think it's not that I expect it to be the same thing, but I feel like if I switch subgenres entirely, it's too much of a jolt of like, oh, this is so
Mhm.
different, and it makes
Yeah,
it even harder to like like balance myself again.
I get
Um,
that.
yeah, so I tend to try to stick with the same subgenre for that. And yeah, I was just thinking of your book actually, Rough Road. I don't remember if I had a book hangover from that, but I did really, really like it, and I still think about it
Oh,
to this
thank you.
day.
Thank you. I feel
And
like that is the book from that series that gets the least amount of attention, but
really,
I think
I think,
so. And that's fine. I mean, I understand why people gravitate towards Roller Girl a lot because it is very, very fluffy and I think kind of very woman empowering.
yeah,
Um,
it's a lot of fun. I really liked
but
that one.
thank you. But Rough Road to me was like, it was in a lot of ways a romantic comedy, but it was also a kink book. So I think people were
Yeah,
like, I don't know what to do with this,
yeah,
because
yeah.
I don't know. It was it
Well,
was it was a lot of things in a small book. But I loved writing it and I loved writing Kinky Eddie and um he's one of my favorite characters I've ever written. And I know he's over the top and he's supposed to be over the top, but um I I I don't know. That book was so much fun. I had so much fun writing that book.
I really like it because I like me some kink, and yeah, it didn't feel like a lot of kink stuff can tend to be heavier or tend to be more like serious because
Mhm.
it's like a serious topic, right? It's fun, but you want to be safe and you want to,
Right.
be consensual and communication and all that. So that can sometimes um require being more serious, but yeah, I thought it was hilarious. I love the dynamic between the two of them. Sorry, I don't remember their names, but
It's Eddie and Wish, Aloysius, but for obvious reasons, everybody called him Wish.
right, yeah. But yeah, I just love the dynamic between the two of them. And like one is this like kind of very prim, guy, and then the other one's a construction worker, you know?
Yes. And there were, I think, 20 years between them. It was a
Yes.
big age gap between
Yes.
them.
I liked
Which,
the age gap as well.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's something that I have written a couple of times in that series specifically. The reason that I wrote such a big age gap in that particular book was because Eddie in the first book kept giving Ben shit about dating a younger guy. And I was like, well, there's going to be an even bigger age gap for you, buddy. So
Yes.
that's all. I was just getting revenge on him for the way he treated Ben.
And I think that was what made it so good too, because he was such a character in the first book. And then it's like, oh, it's like now you're getting yours, you know, in the second book, in both good and bad ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I love doing that with characters. Like if there's something that they are very protesting about in one book, then like when it's from their point of view, you get to turn it around on them. And I just think that's a lot of fun, especially when you're dealing with comedic series, which I wouldn't necessarily call that series a romantic comedy series, but there is a lot of comedic tropes in it. There are a lot of comedic tropes in it. Yes, I can speak English. There are a lot of comedic tropes in it. And I think especially in Rough Road, because it was a kink book and there were some and heavier kinks, like Eddie and Wish like at one point get almost into a fist fight as part of their bedroom play. And so when you're dealing with things like that, you can either go all in on the heaviness, which wouldn't have suited that series at all, or you can balance it out with the lightness. And so that's what I tried to do. And that book has more comedy tropes in it, I think, than the other two in the series because of that, because it was balancing what Ben referred to as Kinky Eddie's youth outreach program. So, yeah, there we go.
I think I'm going to go back and read that now because it's bringing up a lot of warm, fuzzy memories. So,
well, thank you.
Do you have a knitting project that's given you a hangover?
Yes. It is okay. So for me, a lot of it's about the yarn, like the yarn that I use for a project. And I jokingly refer to Malabrigo as my love, but I really, really love Malabrigo. And I don't know that I have a favorite of their yarns, but I would say probably it's between Rios and Arroyo, which are both kind of medium weight yarns. Arroyo is sport weight and Rios is worsted weight or DK, which to me are so similar that I just kind of lump them together. But they're very soft. They're both 100% wool. They're super wash, so you can machine wash them. And I just really, really love those two yarns. So I recently knit, and I say recently, it was last summer, I think, or last fall, the Forest Land sweater by Jen Steinglass. Steinglass or Steinglass. But I knit it in Malabrigo Rios in a light blue color that I can't remember the name of right now. And I did the color work in a cashmere blend, which, I mean, who doesn't love cashmere? And so that yarn was from Fiber for the People. And it was their merino cashmere nylon MCN merino cashmere and nylon blend. And it was just a really beautiful colorway called Angel Rust. And I think the combination of a really pretty pattern, which made one of my favorite sweaters to wear because it's got a great fit, it's got a great shape. It knit up quickly because it was worsted weight, and Most of my sweaters are knit in fingering weight yarn. So when I knit one in worsted weight, it seems like it goes really quickly, and I love that. So um, it just, that was a project that, I still feel good when I think about it, like think about knitting it. And I love wearing the sweater, and I love knitting with those yarns. So yeah, my forest land sweater
Nice.
that one gave me a yarn hangover. And after
Nice.
that, you're like, what yarn am I going to knit next? Like you're not going to find anything as soft as cashmere and Malabrigo, and Jen's patterns are so well written and so beautifully thought out. The way she places her color work and everything, it's just really, I think it's really gorgeous. And so it's hard to pick a new project after that. I
Yeah.
almost always try and knit something completely different.
Right.
After knitting and you know what? I think I knit my cape after that. I knit a herringbone color work cape, and I think that was the next project I did after that.
Fun.
Yeah.
I want to see this cape at some point. You'll have to show it to me.
It is actually hanging right there. I will go get it.
Okay.
Do my little Superman change. So
oh my gosh, that's amazing.
It is mid-thigh length, and it's got little spots for the arms to come out.
I love it.
Knit in one piece in the round. Technically, it was written in two pieces, but I knit it in one piece in the round and then steeked, which I don't know if you can hear me this far away from the microphone, but it was knit in the round, steeked up the middle, and then and I actually did the armholes with steeks too as I went, and then the edging I applied in the round as well. So the whole thing was completely seamless and really just a fun knit. But
that's amazing.
Yeah,
it looks so cool. so cool.
It's from Interweave Knits from a couple years ago, and it's just it's a really beautiful pattern. Once I saw it, I was like, I have to knit that, and I've been wearing that instead of a coat all winter long.
Nice.
Because it's wool, so it's very thick, and I live in Georgia, so it's not very cold here, so I don't need something that zips and buttons all the way up the front. So.
Nice.
So how about you? What projects have given you a yarn hangover?
So so the types of projects that tend to give me yarn hangovers are the ones that tend to be a little more difficult. So like some of the shawls that I've made, where it's like a pretty intricate lace pattern. Not like a lace shawl, but like a fingering weight shawl, but has like a really cool lace pattern. I've done a few different kinds of those, and I think those are the ones that give that like satisfaction, especially like as I'm blocking it and I can see it all like spread out and be like, oh, the lace is so pretty.
Yes, I love that moment when you block a lace shawl and you can see like it just opens it up and you can see all the patterns.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying.
So satisfying. I love that. And then in terms of the yarn that I like the best, I don't have like a go-to brand, but there is this yarn that I picked up in, I want to say British Columbia. So what I do when I go traveling is, especially if it's a place where it's like known for their yarn stores, I like to pick up skeins of sock yarn as souvenirs. So I think it's like a red cashmere blend that I picked up in British Columbia somewhere. And the problem is I never keep any of the labels, so I don't remember what brand it is. But I made a scarf out of it, and it's like the linen stitch scarf. Have you ever done a linen stitch?
I love linen stitch.
I love
I
it because
love
it
it.
looks like weaving as opposed to knitting. The only really annoying thing is you have to knit the scarf lengthwise, which I can never judge like how long it's going to be.
Right.
Yeah, but let me see if I can find the scarf. Hold on, give me 1 second because I think I might know where it is, but let me try to find it.
Did you find it?
Okay, so here's the scarf. I'm trying to find the, okay, so this is the right side. I don't know if you can kind of see like the pattern.
Oh, that's lovely.
It's like, yeah, it doesn't look like knitting really at all because it's got like the slip stitch and
Yeah.
yeah, and so it's this like very gently variegated red yarn that's like cashmere, and I think it's a cashmere and wool blend, and it's so nice.
Beautiful.
It's just so soft. Just cuddle it.
I love cuddly yarns.
Cuddly yarns. And the
So
thing is
it
that,
sounds like for both of us, cashmere is kind of a recipe for a yarn hangover.
well, honestly, like you really can't go wrong with that. Like,
You can't.
how do you get softer than cashmere? You know?
You don't.
You don't.
I
I think
mean,
alpaca can get kind of soft.
alpaca is very soft. Yeah.
Alpaca is soft, yeah.
And very
Um,
warm.
mm-hmm.
The other
Um,
project, not this hat, but the other project I'm working on is a wool and alpaca and linen blend. And it's interesting because the combination of fibers, and I love this yarn. It's linen quill by Pearl Soho.
mhm.
It's very, it doesn't feel very soft in the skein, but as you're knitting with it, it's very soft. And that's from the alpaca, I think. It's also
Okay.
a little bit drapier than a typical wool yarn, and that's from the linen. And
Right.
so that particular combination gives like this very sort of um, soft fabric that's kind of got a nice drape to it. And I'm holding it up like you can see that from there, but but it's very texturally interesting as you're working with it
Mhm.
and the fabric that it makes. So I do think it's the alpaca that gives it that softness,
Mhm.
that real soft to the touch thing. I love
Yeah.
that. I love
Yeah.
alpaca. And it's
Yeah.
so warm, like the
Mhm.
warmest yarn. I think I read somewhere that alpaca hair is hollow, so it works like an insulator.
I can see
Um,
that. Yeah. Mhm.
so we'll have to look that up and find out if that's true.
Mhm.
I,
Yeah.
I don't know
We
why
should,
I would remember something like that if it wasn't true, but
yeah. We should
but
do another
I,
episode on different types of fibers.
yes, let's do
Hmm.
that.
Yes. I don't know too much about fibers, but I think it'd be a cool one to learn about.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Have you recently read a book or finished a knitting project that gave you a yarn or book hangover? We would love to hear about it in the comments below. And if there's a subject you'd like to hear us talk about, tell us about that as well.
And if you enjoyed our talk today, please like and comment and subscribe to support our channel. And we'll have links to all of the books and patterns that we've mentioned in the box below. And until next time, remember, write boldly, knit fearlessly.